There are many different matters in life that can cause us to stress. There are many different situations, challenges, whatever we come by that allow us to stress. We can even stress about certain scenarios that we play in our head, even though we aren't actually physically stuck in that particular scenario. So in this particular video, I'm going to split stress into two categories. The first category being stressing over matters that we have control over. Matters that we can have an input and change the situation. The other category will be stressing over matters that we don't have control over. But before we get into that, let's have a sort of outline of what is stress. Let's sort of define it or understand it. Where does it really come from? Why is it there? Let's imagine that you are being chased by a lion. And there is no sense of fear, no sense of stress, no fight or flight. Eventually, you may be attacked by the lion, you'll be eaten up, and you will not be alive anymore. Now, the reason why stress is there, it's a sort of defensive mechanism. It's an escape mechanism to get out of the danger, to keep you alive, so that life can thrive. In every single way, life is trying to thrive. This tree is trying to conserve its energy for when it's spring again, for when there's enough sunlight again, so that it can blossom and it can grow. Life is always trying to thrive. So let's first appreciate stress before we judge it or get into other sort of things that we play into our head, we fantasize it. Now that we have that on the side, I want to mention something else. Stress management. People talk about stress management. As far as I know, managing a particular thing, I do so because I care about it. I manage my businesses because I want to make sure they flourish and I grow assets, and I don't manage things that I don't really like. Stress, we don't really want to manage it. We don't want it to be there all the time, right? Instead of stress management, let's talk about stress understanding. Let's understand the situation, because once we understand it, we can transcend it, we can overcome it, okay? So starting with the first category that I mentioned in the beginning, stressing about matters that we have control over. So what's an example? An example could be a specific deadline that is around the corner, next week, next month. This deadline could be paying a mortgage. This deadline could be a particular exam. Now, let's leave aside the way we fantasize this deadline, because different people will value these deadlines differently. So two individuals which may be in the exact same situation, which have to pay the exact same mortgage, which may have this exact same financial difficulty, may stress about it on different ways. This proves to you that, the way you fantasize it definitely has an impact on how much stress there is. So let's say you have a very important exam coming up in 2-3 months or so. If you spend time thinking about what could go wrong, because that's what stress is supposed to do. It's supposed to get you out of the situation. It is seeing this exam as though it's that tiger or that lion that's trying to eat you up. If we spend time succumbing to the stress, succumbing to what the stress is trying to get us to do, which is escape, then we will be in this perpetual loop. We will overstress, we will overwhelm ourselves, and we will overwhelm our physical body, because stress is a physical matter that takes place in our body. Okay? So the first thing we need to do after we've identified whether we have control over the stress or not is to understand how much, or observe the matter and realize that we should not fantasize it and succumb to the stress. Once that's sort of understood, we can move on to the next step, which is essentially to do what we can do. Because remember, we can do something about this. We have some control over the matter. So what we do for this exam is we plan our time, we revise as much as possible, we orchestrate our environment in such a way to best prepare us for this exam. Okay? And then essentially what we are doing is we are using the stress as a fuel to revise, to prepare for the final exam, or we are using the stress as a tool to look at ways to gather the funds to be able to pay the mortgage for the next month if we are in a particular difficulty. Okay? I know I'm putting this simply because some individuals are going through very, very, very challenging times, especially in this day and age with the whole virus going on and all of that stuff. But if we really look at it, if we really break it down, we can actually make it look a lot simpler than it really is. And when it looks a lot simpler to us in our heads, we can then plan accordingly and we can actually overcome the challenge in a better way. Because, and this is related to the second category of stress, stressing about matters that we don't have control over. If we stress about matters that we don't have control over, we are engaging in a pointless act of suffering. We are hurting ourselves for no reason, because we fully know that there is no control over this. I am born with a particular condition. There is no cure to this condition, you know? Instead of stressing about this the whole time, which may perhaps even make the condition worse by stressing over it, and instead of comparing ourselves and looking at the contrast of all the human beings who don't have this condition, I have this, which inspires even more stress. Let's accept that this is the way things are. This is the way it is. This tree behind me doesn't, compare itself with this tree because it has one branch going like this and the other branch going like that. It doesn't. And so, in my opinion, it may be difficult for some, but for me, being able to accept matters that we don't have control over and to not stress about them is a lot easier than having to stress about matters that we do have control over them. Because there is an additional challenge where we have to actually put ourselves in a position where we prepare for the deadline or the stressful matter or situation, right? So, let's not fantasize, let's not overwhelm ourselves by succumbing with the stress, overthinking it, right? And then get stuck into a deep hole of stress. And then when the deadline comes, we stress even more. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work right, you know? It doesn't even help you physically. Now, I have zero medical background, but I can tell you for sure, from experience as well, that stress can really enhance different difficulties that we have physically already. So if you have stomach problems, I have come across a time where I faced difficulties with IBS, okay, irritable bowel syndrome. The more I stress, the worse it gets. The more I stress, the more I constipate, you know. And ironically, constipation, I guess, it's a sort of analogy of what stress really is. It's just resistance, and it's stopping you from moving forward in life. That's all it really is. So let's not manage our stress. Let's understand it. Let's come to terms with it. Let's appreciate the fact that it's there to try and protect us. And then let's move on to face the challenge or accept the way matters are. This is it. Thank you so much for watching. Do make sure you check out my Instagram. I post videos and quotes and content on there daily. Do make sure you like this video. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people. It's honestly, heartwarming to see people on the other side of the world appreciating this content. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. This is Hassan from The Spiritual Walks, and I see you next week.